Hey everyone, it's been a few weeks now since I released my review of Battlefield 2042, and going through the comments, one theme is apparently clear. A lot of players are not happy with 2042. The game appears to be on life support, with the concurrent players on Steam dipping below that of Battlefield 5, which has no doubt been setting off alarms back at EA. DICE has been trying to push out fixes since launch to address bugs and balancing, but with a rumored release date of late March for Season 1, we still have a ways to go before more content that is desperately needed will be added to the game. This brings us to today's video, where I will be going over 11 changes that I think could help turn the tide for 2042, including one at the end that I think would have made 2042 a great game right from the start. I have been a very long time fan of the franchise, and have considered Battlefield my main game since Bad Company. With that long history with the franchise, I want you to be assured that the following points that I make truly come from a place of love, as I want to see Battlefield flourish and not become yet another game of the past that we reminisce about. I am not a developer by any means, so I have no idea how difficult these things would be to change, and I understand that the devs are under a ton of pressure, both from the fans and no doubt from EA. So this video is intended to put my thoughts about the game out there, on the off chance that someone from EA or DICE may see it and use it as constructive criticism to get this franchise back on track. Some of these points you may have heard from other creators already, but the reason these things are repeated is that they were core features of previous titles, and a return to form would go a long way towards making 2042 the game it should have been at launch. I'm not going to talk about the numerous bugs that are still in the game, like the persistence data errors that are still happening or the hit registration for example, since these obviously need to be fixed, and I hope by the time you are watching this, DICE already has patches coming down the line for them. Instead, I will stick to changes that can be made to the overall game design to make this feel like a Battlefield game. These aren't in any particular order, as I feel they all hold equal weight in what is the overall formula that makes Battlefield great. The first thing I would suggest is add a way to see a traditional scoreboard while playing and in the spawn screen. This suggestion has been beaten to death, I know, but it is such a staple of first-person shooters that it should have been in the game since day one. Yes, there is a breakdown of your personal stats in the game, but the overall scoreboard to see how you stack up against the rest of the players in the lobby is completely absent in this title. The scoreboard in my opinion breeds competition, and therefore it gives you the drive to play more and get better. Without a way to see how you are doing against other players, that drive is missing for me. It would also be nice to know I'm not the only one dying in the chaos so much. This brings me to my second change. Add a stats and leaderboard page to the main menu. As I mentioned in my review, we used to have a ton of different stats that we could check in the main menu, and we even got Battlelog with Battlefield 4 so we could check from our phones. These stats covered a wide range of metrics from knife kills, ribbons earned, and individual weapon stats, to games and hours played, kill-death ratio, best weapon, and so much more. Right now, the best way we can see stats is in the player card menu, where it shows your progress towards the different unlocks. It would be nice to see all of these broken down further like they used to be. The third change I would suggest is completely retool the specialist system and bring the game back to the traditional class system. The specialists have their place and can stay, but class lock them along with their gadgets and class specific weapons. To go with this, there should be an entirely different set of specialists for each faction. It would make sense for the specialists of each faction to have the same skills and abilities as their counterparts, but having the same specialists on both sides just makes it feel like the Clone Wars. Diving all the way in with the specialists to add them to the classes as opposed to replacing them altogether would have been a much better choice in my opinion. Honestly, this is an opportunity lost for EA. Locking 3 specialists per class and having a second set for the opposing faction would more than double their potential for income from skin sales, while still building on one of the core principles of Battlefield, the class system. To add to this, voice chat should be put back in the game so that players have the option to communicate and work with their squad, especially in Hazard Zone, where teamwork is key. The fourth change continues along with the specialists, and it is in regards to the super cringy one-liners at the end of each game. I was going to pick the worst one, but really they are all bad. The quips can stay. Okay, well, not the ones that are in the game now, they can all go. But the idea behind them is good, and the quips should be more in line with the overall story of the game. The current pool of one-liners is completely out of place against the backdrop of a post-apocalyptic future, and replacing them with sayings that make sense would help slow the creation of the many memes that have been circulating lately. This leads me to the maps for my fifth change. The maps need some attention, to say the least. As I mentioned in my review, most maps are almost completely open, giving very little cover as you make your way between the objectives. They are also pristine, with almost no sign of struggle or previous wars. Outside of Hourglass, which has been reclaimed by sand, there are no signs of the catastrophic weather we have been led to believe tore the world apart, other than of course a tornado itself. Adding new areas to these maps that bring the story to life would give a greater feeling of cohesion to the game and make it feel like it is not heading in multiple directions. This is where I feel the decision to not add a single player campaign seriously hurt 2042. In most games, the multiplayer maps are derived from the campaign missions, directly tying them to the story of the game. Without the campaign to draw inspiration from, the maps feel disjointed and honestly feels like the dark and gritty story we were given right before the release was concocted the week before its announcement, well after the maps had been designed. To add to this, something needs to be done about the lack of destruction in 2042. In previous titles we could level entire buildings, where now the best we can do is break some walls and crinkle some ductwork. I think that story-related content and much more destructible elements could be added before we get to the new maps, which I will go into in more detail about shortly. The sixth change I would suggest is still on the theme of the maps, but I'm going to bring Portal into the mix here. I like the idea of Portal, and I think it should stay in the game without a doubt. However, I think there was a missed opportunity here. I personally think that Portal and All Out Warfare should have been combined to be the base game. Rather than splitting everyone, as well as 3/4 of the assets in the game, and since all of these places would still exist in the Battlefield universe in 2042, they should merge Portal and All Out Warfare so the base game includes all maps and weapons from all eras. This would make sense to the story as well. In the future that they have painted, all soldiers would be using whatever they could get their hands on, including the surplus of long-forgotten wars. This would have also opened the door for a massive amount of monetization options. First on skins for the multitude of weapons, and the fact that many more storyline characters from all the different battlefields could have been added as specialists to fill out that aspect of the game. The next change I would suggest for number 7 is towards the vehicles. I mentioned in my review that I felt they hit the nail on the head with the vehicles, but after playing more and reading the comments of that video, it seems like they still have work to do in that area as well. Since launch, the vehicles have been getting nerfed on every update that has been released so far, mainly in regards to the splash damage that vehicles do against infantry. I've also seen people want the vehicles nerfed even further, some going as far as to say there are too many vehicles in the game altogether. I feel a little different myself. I would love to see stronger weapons on the vehicles and at least a 50% increase in the number of vehicles available in each match. This is only possible if suggestion number 5 is implemented, of course. With the current map design, there are no areas for infantry to really get away from the vehicles, making them seem overpowered and overspawned. If the maps were designed in such a way to complement both playstyles, it would allow room for more powerful vehicles in greater numbers. There are also some major control issues for both vehicles and infantry, which I will go into next. For change number 8, I'm going to focus on the controls in 2042. As I mentioned, the controls need some major work, especially in regards to the options that we get to adjust them. The old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, comes to mind here, with many players stating that the vehicle controls are different than those of the past for PC, making it difficult to fly with mouse and keyboard, calling for a return to the controls of that of Battlefield 3 and 4. I have not experienced this myself as I am on the Series X, but I have noticed a strange delay when adjusting the pitch and yaw of choppers, almost like nothing is registered from the stick until about the 40% mark. Counter this with the tanks that have the complete opposite issue. I tend to keep my dead zone relatively low in games, and as infantry in 2042 I can be standing still with a slight drift on my right stick. As soon as I jump in a tank, however, the left stick appears to have a mind of its own and I roll away when trying to stand still. Back as infantry, the response curve for the aim is brutal, making the controls seem too slow and too fast at the same time. Having the ability to adjust the curve values or even set a linear response would be a welcome addition. I still have the aim assist turned completely off for this title, as I wanted to challenge myself with it, and I'm finding it tough to really dial in the settings, so being able to finally tune the control settings a step further would be really helpful. This goes for the vehicles as well. Currently the helicopter and jet controls are locked as one, and separate control trees with more options would go a long way. Change number 9 is regarding Hazard Zone, the all-new high-stakes mode that seems to be everything but exciting to play. I was excited for Hazard Zone when it was teased. It sounded like it was going to be something pretty cool. But once it was announced, I instantly had concerns about the mode. My first words were literally, "That's it?" With info about the development cycle leaking out over time and Tom Henderson's comprehensive video covering the subject, it seemed like Hazard Zone was intended to originally be a battle royale, with that plan being scrapped halfway through development in favor of what we ended up getting. A slow, underwhelming experience that seems to be hemorrhaging players. The last time I attempted to play Hazard Zone, it took me 15 minutes to get into a game, and it put me into a 3-man squad. In my opinion, two things can be done to save Hazard Zone. First and foremost, make it free to play. This should have been how it was since day one, as it could not only bring in more players and interest for Hazard Zone, but it could also boost interest in sales for the base game. The second thing that could save Hazard Zone is not an easy fix by any means, but I think it is what the mode truly needs. Turn it back into what it was originally supposed to be, a battle royale with the Battlefield touch. I personally liked Firestorm, and thought it could have been great if developed further. It would have been nice to see those ideas expanded on for Hazard Zone, and have a new battle royale that could truly compete in the space that is dominated by Warzone and Fortnite. If DICE could retool Hazard Zone, make it more exciting with elements of a battle royale and make it free to play, it could honestly save the mode and potentially 2042 as a whole. Number 10 isn't necessarily a change to the game itself, but a suggestion for Season 1. We need to have our minds blown with Season 1. With the small amount of content that was shipped at launch, Season 1 needs to pull out all the stops and deliver something truly great, especially if the late March release date rumors prove to be true. Current rumors have Season 1 only releasing one map, and the Ultimate Bundle would suggest only one new specialist per season. If we do indeed need to wait until March for one map and one specialist, I fear it will be too little too late. If the one map that is coming is truly next level and brings good map design and jaw-dropping destruction, I could be wrong here. But if the new map is just more of the same open, chaotic gameplay, I'm not sure how many players will still be around by the time Season 2 drops. The game is already starving for content 2 months post-launch, and Season 1 needs to really knock it out of the park. This leads me right into change number 11. Up to this point, it seems as though design choices have been driven by gaming trends and what makes publishers the most money. DICE needs to change who they are listening to, stand up to EA, and take back creative control of their games by listening to their community and longtime fans of the franchise. Chasing new players is always a good idea for any franchise, but gutting the core values of a game to replace your fan base, as opposed to expanding on it, is a recipe for disaster. In an attempt to emulate the success of Warzone and Fortnite, it seems they have paid less attention to what the fans want out of a Battlefield game, and more attention to what made those games so much money, and then just shoved a Battlefield title on it due to the selling power of the franchise. I understand that EA must be putting a tremendous amount of pressure on DICE to build a money-making machine and then wrap a game around it, but I think it's time developers got back to making a solid game first, based on what the players want, and then find a creative way to monetize it. There's no hiding what 2042 is in the eyes of EA, an engine to sell specialist skins, and we as players can all see it. Lastly, I have one final change as a bonus, and I believe that it would have made 2042 a much better received game overall, and dare I say even a great game. Battlefield 2042 should have never been a Battlefield game. This is all the workings of the start of a whole new standalone franchise away from the Battlefield title. This game does have good elements, and with further development, it will be a fun to play modern first-person shooter. However, no matter what they do to the game at this point, I don't think they will ever be able to truly grasp that Battlefield feeling, and I believe that is what players are truly disappointed in the most. If this were the start of its own franchise, there would be nothing to really compare this game to. There wouldn't have been so many changes to the core structure of what we were expecting, and we could have truly enjoyed the game for what it is. But with the very long and rich history of Battlefield, this game just feels out of place and hollow. I felt this way about Hardline as well. Say what you will about the game, it had some really good elements, and could have been the start of something really great. But with the Battlefield title, it just was not what we were expecting, and the game disappeared into obscurity. I hope that the same fate does not await 2042, and I am truly hopeful that they can make some of these changes that I've mentioned, because I am a huge fan of the franchise, and all of these suggestions really do come from a place of love. I miss the days where I couldn't walk away from Battlefield, and would just play hours on end because it was just so awe-inspiring, and I am sad to see that it has become little more than a shell for making money. I have all my fingers and toes crossed for Season 1, as I truly believe it will make or break this game, but I will be keeping my eye on all the updates as well. As I mentioned in my review for 2042, I haven't given up on the title quite yet, and I plan to continue covering it along with my other games, so expect to see more Battlefield videos in the near future. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button to let me know and help share it with others. Do you have any other suggestions you would add? If so, let me know down in the comments. That's all I have for you today. As always, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, keep gaming.